Oke, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, we are from fourth group and we will going to explain about standard for conduct, routine, procedure, and safe school policy. And before the presentation begin, I will introduce my group. My name is Agung Wistiadi as a moderator and presenter. And then Rahmi Nurholisa as a presenter, Rina Nuria as a presenter, Sandi Irfan as a presenter, and the last Tasya Ashifana as a presenter. And before the presentation begin, let's say Basmalah together.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Okay, thank you. And the preface of the subject, the purpose of writing this chapter report is to fulfill one of the assignments that given by Mr. Muhammad Arjanda Ghaffar as a lecturer in classroom management in ELT. And the benefit of this discussion is hopefully we can increase our knowledge about how to develop strategies for establishing standard for classroom conduct, procedure for classroom routine, and school-wide discipline and safety policy. Okay, for the first material will be explained by Sandi Irfan. For Sandi Irfan, time is yours.
Thank you, Agung. Okay, this is the goal and objective of this chapter. So we are going to learn about distinguish between necessary and unnecessary standard for classroom conduct, and also understand and consequence of having unnecessary standard. And then we are going to learn how to apply the teaching cycle model to help students compare standard of conduct and learn how to meet them and predict the consequence of not meeting them. And also we're going to learn how to develop a plan for establishing and enforcing standard for classroom conduct, and as well as routine procedures. And then collaborate with colleagues, parents, students, and community leaders to develop school-wide disciplines, policies, and safe school program. So those are the things that we're going to discuss in this chapter. Next, please. Standard for classroom conduct. Standard for classroom conduct purposely formalized statement that provides students with general guidelines for the type of behavior that are required and those that are prohibited. Next. This is the example of the case for standard for classroom conduct. There are 3 students. Their name is Tau, Nikita, and Kay. And Tau is taking one such test sitting Nikita and Kay reading for the others. Kay rises and lean over Tau and hand Nikita a pencil. And then teacher noticed the disturbance and motions Kay to his desk where he asked. And then the teacher asked, Kay, what is the rules about getting off your seat during a test? And then Kay answers, I was only returning a pencil I borrowed from Nikita, and besides, I never left my desk. And the teacher's answer, how is it possible for you to give Nikita the pencil without leaving your seat? And the student say, I lean over my knee and stay out of my seat. And then the teacher said, that's the same as leaving your desk. And then the K, not if my knee was still touching. That's the example of the case. Next. Okay, this is the explanation. Kay, the student, is focusing on remaining in her seat when she should have been more thoughtful about not disturbing Tau or his friend. Instead of specific procedural rules, the teachers, Mr. Blankton, should have had purposely stated standards such as, be careful not to disturb your friend while they are taking a test, because the focus of such a statement is not disturbing classmate, instead in or out of the seat. So that's the explanation. Next. The number of standards for classroom conduct. The teacher may sometimes fall into the trap of establishing too many narrowly focused rules instead of pure standard because they confuse standard of conduct with routine procedures applicable to only specific situation. Well, that's all for me. Thank you. I'll bring back to moderator.
Okay, thank you for Sandy. And the next material will be explained by Rina. For Rina, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for moderator. I will explain about procedure for smoothly operating classroom. Routine procedure, like standard, should communicate expectation for behavior. Unlike a standard, however, a routine procedure applies only to a particular type of event and does not define a general principle for appropriate behavior. Standard for classroom conduct should be printed out and prominently displayed in the classroom. But routine procedures are usually learned through participants and need to be displayed in printed form. Next. The next point is necessary standard for conduct. The first, for purpose. Teacher a necessary standard of conduct. A necessary standard for classroom conduct is one that serves at least one of the following purposes. The first point for purpose, maximize on-task behavior and minimize off-task, especially disruptive behavior. The second point is secure the safety and comfort of the learning environment. The next point is prevent the activities of the class from disturbing other classes and persons outside the class. And the last point is maintain decorum among students, school personnel, and visitors to the school campus. Next. Enggak. The second point is justification of a standard. Ordinarily, wearing hat does not interfere with student being on task. Of course, you can think of expectation such as student who is wearing an outlandish hat that is excessively large or decorated with provocative pictures. But such expectation can be compared under general standards such as dress for class so that your apparel does not distract others from their work. The third point is politeness and courtesy. Decorum is necessary because polite interaction among students and teacher help maintain a classroom that is conducive to cooperation, whereas all feelings are a consequence of impoliteness. Although that wearing in a building may be distasteful to one person, it may be invoked to another and required by the religion of yet another. Such a particle definition, as opposed to conventional dictionary definition, focus on truthfulness toward other rather than on one group's opinion about what constitute good tests. And the second point is standard. The consequence of unnecessary standard. The first point is you will be responsible for enforcing a standard that does not have a defensible rationale. Thus, you put yourself to unjustified regulation. The second point is when your student realize that one of the standard you enforce serves no important purpose, they will tend to generalize that other standard might be unimportant also. And the last, students who are penalized for resisting an unnecessary standard may become disenchant with school. Such students are often distracted from the business of learning because time that could be allocated for learning activities is used to deal with violation of standard. Okay. That's enough for me. I bring to back moderator.
Okay, thank you, Rina. And next material will be explained by Tasha. For Tasha, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So now I'm going to explain the materials about when to determine standards and routine procedure. So there are two times that commonly used by teachers to determine standard and routine procedure. Some of them are preferred to determine all standards for conduct a large share of routine procedure at the outset of a school term, and the others prefer to do it throughout the school term. And then there are some advantage of determining the routine procedure and all standard at the outset of school term. The first one is some of test behavior pattern will not have time to emerge because expectations are formally communicated from the beginning. Jadi ketika kita menentukan prosedur dan semua standar di awal masa sekolah, kecil kemungkinan untuk off-test behavior muncul karena ekspektasi yang diharapkan untuk siswa telah dikomunikasikan dari awal. And then the second one, students are more receptive to learning standard and procedure at the beginning of a school term than when they have become accustomed to a situation. And then the third, the sooner students know about standard and procedure, the more time they will have to practice following them. Jadi, jika siswa lebih cepat diberitahu mengenai standar dan prosedur, maka siswa akan memiliki waktu lebih banyak untuk mempelajari standar dan prosedur tersebut. And on the other hand, there are some advantage if you want to establish standard and routine procedure throughout the school term. The first one is waiting to establish some standard, avoid prescribing standard breaking behavior for students who were positively reinforced for breaking regulation in previous classes. And then the second is students are more likely to understand a standard or a procedure when it is established in response to a need that has just become apparent. And then the last, individual standard and procedure that are established gradually rather than thrust on them all at once. So you may choose to use some combination of the two approaches by establishing several purposefully stated standards of conduct and some basic routine procedure at the outset, and then develop a more comprehensive list over time. The younger your students are, so the more time you will need to establish and teach standard and procedure at the very beginning of a school year. Next. So, who should determine standards? According to the books, there are 4 options to decide who will establish the standard. These options are, first, you decide all standards, making sure that each of it is purposefully stated and necessary and not confused with a routine procedure. And then the second, you determine all standards by yourself, but your determinations are influenced by the recommendation of students. And then third, standards are proposed and voted by students. You are responsible for establishing the structure for democratic decision-making, providing leadership to encourage the establishment of necessary, purposefully stated standard, and ensuring that every student has the opportunity to participate in making decisions. And then the fourth, some combination of the other 3 methods is used. Maybe you impose a few fundamental guidelines for behavior. Students participate in making decisions about more specific standards that fall within the purview of those guidelines. And then Kang Biolosi in 2013 once said that how well each option works depends more on how you go about implementing it than on which one you choose. I think that's all from me. Thank you. I'll bring it back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you for Tasha. And the next material will be explained by Rahmi. For Rahmi, time is yours.
Thank you, moderator. Please, next slide. Okay, thank you. I will explain about teaching standard and procedure to student. It is one thing to establish standard of behavior and routine procedure for activities, teaching them to student and another. Student must be first learn what the standard are and the procedure and how to follow them. Then they must be willing to follow them. The teaching cycle model is as applicable to teaching standard and procedure as this model to teach academic subject. Jadi, untuk menetapkan standar perilaku dan prosedur rutin kegiatan adalah dengan si siswa kita itu harus mempelajari terlebih dahulu apa itu standar dan apa prosedurnya. Lalu bagaimana cara mereka untuk mengikutinya, yang kemudian mereka mau tidak mau mengikuti aturan tersebut. Contoh misalnya seorang guru membuat aturan, bagaimana cara siswa mau melaksanakan aturan itu? Ya dengan diberi contoh terlebih dahulu dan diberikan prosedur langkah-langkahnya bagaimana cara membuang sampah yang benar gitu. Dan mau tidak mau mereka harus mengikuti aturan itu karena mereka sudah dikasih contoh. Next. And then second, I will explain about necessary standard for conduct. Classroom behavior standard and routine procedure should not conflict with all school policies. Unfortunately, student is in some departmental school have to do so and deal with standard for one teacher that are inconsistent with another. Many schools have uniform discipline policies that allow teachers to set standard of classroom behavior, but still have to measure and take over no school-wide policies at all. First, a school-wide disciplinary policy can establish general guidelines for the standard of behavior of every teacher in the classroom. And second, disciplinary policies across school can establish support service for individual teacher classroom standard. So, jadi standar perilaku kelas dan prosedur rutin tidak boleh bertentangan dengan kebijakan sekolah secara keseluruhan. Tetapi banyak sekali beberapa sekolah harus melakukannya dan berurusan dengan standar untuk satu guru yang tidak konsisten dengan yang lain. Banyak sekolah yang memiliki aturan yang tidak diperlukan gitu. Contohnya melarang siswa memakai topi selain topi sekolah, melarang anak laki-laki siswa memakai anting-anting, atau mengatur rambut laki-laki jangan panjang. Terus jangan untuk perempuan jangan memakai make up berlebihan. Ini adalah contoh umum peraturan sekolah yang sulit dibenarkan karena 4 alasan perilaku standar. Tanggung jawab kita sebagai guru semakin diperumit dengan dituntut untuk menegakkan kebijakan yang tidak perlu. Maksudnya gimana ya? Gitu. Kalau misalkan masalah itu mah tidak terlalu diperlukan gitu. Jangan terlalu difokuskan menjadi aturan yang benar-benar di sekolah gitu kalau yang menurut dari buku ini. Lalu banyak sekolah memiliki kebijakan disiplin yang seragam yang memungkinkan guru untuk menetapkan standar perilaku kelas tapi masih memiliki 2 keunggulan utama dibandingkan tidak ada kebijakan di seluruh sekolah sama sekali. Pertama, kebijakan disiplin di seluruh sekolah dapat menetapkan pedoman umum untuk standar perilaku setiap guru di kelas. Idealnya, pedoman ini cukup fleksibel untuk memungkinkan otonomi guru sambil memberikan arahan yang memadai untuk mencegah standar satu guru bertentangan dengan standar lainnya. Lalu yang kedua, kebijakan disipliner di seluruh sekolah dapat membentuk layanan dukungan untuk menegakkan standar kelas guru individu. Maybe just enough for me.
Okay, thank you for Rahmi. And the next material will be explained by me. And I will explain about developing safe school program. The first is the roots of school violence. A teacher doesn't really have to worry about preventing violence or dealing with violent activities at school. But however, today's reality dictates that being prepared to do so is necessary to success as a teacher. Fortunately, there is a wealth of research-based literature that provides guidance for school personnel to develop strategies for reducing the incident of violence on campus and effectively responding to violent activity when it occurs. In order to develop such a strategy, you need to examine the roots of violence in school. And there are 4 factors that lead to chronic violent behavior. The first is broken sociality, and then stress and conflict, and then a culture of violence and unhealthy brain. And the next is focus on prevention, not retribution. When students inappropriate speech interferes with learning activities, their teachers must implement strategies to stop their disruptive behavior, re-engage the class in learning activities, and teach students to choose more appropriate times to speak. And the next is violent prevention strategies. Despite influence major social reform that lead to a softer and softer society, acts of violence are outside the scope of the school. Every school faculty is positioned to achieve significant success in preventing violence by concentrating on its student group alone. And the traditional rehabilitation approach focus on defines and control drive, whereas more recent reclamation strategies focus on developing strength and enduring. By enrolling students as a partner in the given against violence, school create youth adult pro-social bonds and meet the needs of children for an environment consistent, loving, and safe help repair broken social bonds. And then the next is conflict management and resolution. Some conflicts can have positive results. They can increase achievement, motivation learning, high-level reason, long-term retention, health, social, and cognitive development, and then the fun that students have in school. An information function of a safe school system is to identify and eliminate activity gangs from the school campus. A gang is a group of allied people who engage in criminal behaviors such as assault, vandalism, drug trafficking, and extortion. Usually, a gang claims an area and defend it from influence of other gang. And there are some knowledge about gangs. The first gang have existed since the beginning of organized society. The second, gang development is associated with the disintegration of family units, increased urbanization, drug, and meaningful job reducing for youth and young adults, racial discrimination, attention, and conflict. And the third is a member of the gang are 3 times more likely to engage in violence than youth who are not gang, and etc. because it's a lot. And indicator of gangs emergence at school include a tradition of gangs in the community, increase in ethnic conflicts, display of graffiti on and near the school campus, and then extensive drug use and hostile confrontation, and increasing truancy rates, availability of weapons, and the last show by us. And the next is working with gang affiliate student and eliminating gang activities in school. And as a teacher, our responsibility is to lead students, either gang member or not, behave well in school, do your assignment, and be involved in learning activities that you plan for them. Gang affiliated students, however, may be more it is difficult to fulfill your request to cooperate. The key getting their compliments is to focus on 3 gang value. And the 3 gang value is know student names, and then use cooperative learning strategies to create opportunity for students to work with others they wouldn't have otherwise. Institute clubs speak informal outside class, luar kelas. Jadi harus ngomongnya jangan formal gitu kalau sama murid yang geng di luar kelas. And then gentle caring school communities. Student grasp the vision of a new way of behaving by A, experiencing teacher pattern of communication that are gentle. B, observing how gentle teachers respond to treat verbal abuse given stimulus or typical environment violence. And the last is seeing what teachers value. And the next is essential of an effective safe school system. And there have 11 elements. To be effective, a safe school system must include the following. The first is the program is developed with the support of a consensus of school personnel, student parents, community leaders, and community agencies, including law enforcement agencies. The initial design of the program is based on the result of research study on school safety and school safety audits. The second is a school safety committee is organized and active to plan, monitor, and redesign the program. And next is the program uses a team approach with all school personnel working collaboratively with student parents, community leaders, and community agencies. And next is all school personnel receive ongoing training in the art of making the program successful. And then the program is coordinated with school-wide discipline policy. And next is provision for building positive relationship among students, teachers, and other school personnel are included. And the next is school-wide system for resolving conflict is implemented. And the next is communication networks are installed using modern technologies so that school personnel can rapidly communicate with one another. Backup and crisis support research and procedure are in place. And the last is procedure are in place controlling traffic. Okay, and then for the conclusion, our presentation is standard for classroom conduct are formalized statements that provide students with general guidelines for the types of behavior that are required and those that are prohibited. Teachers may sometimes fall into the trap of establishing too many narrowly focused rules instead of fewer standards because they confuse standard of conduct with routine procedure applicable to only specific situations. Standard for classroom conduct should be printed out and prominently displayed in the classroom, but routine procedures are usually learned through participation and need to display in print form. There are 2 types that commonly used by teachers to determine standard and routine procedure at the very beginning of a school year or term and throughout the school term. And there are 4 options that can be used to decide who will establish standard. Students must first learn what the standards are and the procedure and how to follow them. Then they must be willing to follow them, and then classroom behavior standard and routine procedures should not conflict with the host school policy. And there are 8 things in developing safe school program that we need to consider. Okay, thank you. And then the next session is discussion session or question and answer. Okay, maybe that's all from us. Thank you for your attention. Stay safe. Don't forget use your mask. Don't forget wash your hand. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.